Shalom. First and foremost, call Halal Yamla, Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim HaRachakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone that I learned this truth from. And also peace and salutation to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. In this video, I'm going to be responding to this article that you see here on the screen. This is from AlJazeera.com. It says, Shutdown of Hormuz Strait raises fears of soaring oil prices. Okay. And as the article goes into, the United States and Israel's war with Iran has spilled over into the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical energy checkpoints, prompting a surge in oil prices. Shipping through the strait, which carries 1/5 of the oil consumed globally, as well as large quantities of gas, has ground to a near halt amid Iranian attacks on oil tankers in the region. Right? It says a commander in Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps said on Monday that the strait was quote unquote closed, and that any vessel attempting to pass through the waterway would be set, quote, ablaze. All right. And so, this is going into, pretty much due to the current conflict, the current war between Babylon the Great America and the small hatch Amalek, all right, versus Iran. All right. One of the strategic moves that Iran has done as of lately, okay, to counter against the attacks of, America and Israel, was shut up, pretty much closed down the Strait of Hormuz. And as it went into, okay, 1/5 or 20% of the world's oil and gas, let's see if I can find it again. Okay, right here. Says shipping through the strait, which carries 1/5 of the oil consumed globally, as well as large quantities of gas, has ground to a near halt amid Iranian attacks on oil tankers in the region. So 1/5 or 20% of the oil consumed globally goes through the Strait of Hormuz. All right, and so with it now being closed off, by Iran. Okay, this is ultimately going to strike a major blow in the oil and gas industry globally. Okay, especially when it comes to oil consumption. All right, and as it even says right here underneath the title in italics. Okay, let me highlight this. It says consumers are set to pay higher prices, but U.S. producers could benefit. Analysis say. Yeah, and as always, okay. Anytime the government of Babylon the Great America goes throughout the earth and does some type of wickedness, okay, or tries to screw over some other country throughout the world, all right, and starts a particular war or some type of conflict, or does some type of wickedness throughout the earth, ultimately, who ends up paying the price, all right, for the wickedness of the government of Babylon the Great? Okay, the average everyday American, the middle class, the poor class, they're the ones who always pay the price for, all right, for the wickedness of their own government. You see that? And so in this case, all right, here in America, Babylon the Great, as we've been seeing over these past couple of days, all right, since the beginning of the since when the U.S. and Israel struck Iran, okay, this past Saturday morning, all right, we've been seeing gas prices go up, all right, and as well the Dow going down, okay, the price of crude oil jumping up, due to the conflict between the U.S., Israel, and Iran, all right, and it's ultimately all going to result in, over this past week, okay, in these days and weeks to come, people paying more at the pump, right? Oil continuing to go up, gas continuing to go up, and the middle class and the poorer class of America, Babylon the Great, catching more and more hell. Okay, as people are already catching hell financially when it comes to struggling to pay rent, right? Struggling to afford food, okay? Pay for medical needs and disabilities and things like that. Okay, well now people, now they're gonna have to worry about, the struggle of being able to afford gas. Okay, paying more at the pump, due to the wickedness of their own government. And you see, and this is all further leading to perplexity that Yahushua spoke of here in the book of Luke, 21st chapter, and the 25th verse. All right, this is all associated with the times of the Gentiles, the heathen nations being fulfilled. All right, in these latter days. Luke 21 verse 25, Yahushua is speaking. He says, "And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars." Okay, and just the other day, you had a blood moon, appear in the heavens. Okay, just the other day. All right, in the midst of this conflict that's going on between the United States, Israel, and Iran. Okay, another sign in the heavens. A blood moon. All right, ultimately, for all these things are being done, by Yahweh Shai to ultimately let his hopeful elect, the remnant of the nation of Israel, know that our captivity is almost over with. Okay, and at the times of the Gentiles, the heathen nations, their rulership is just about fulfilled. Okay, the Lord is showing us that we're in these times by showing us different signs in the heavens, right? In the sun, the moon, blood moons, right? Eclipses, okay, which we've been seeing, several of these events, especially over these past few years, right? Especially from since 2020 up until now. Okay, the Lord is showing us different signs in the heavens, right? Blood moons and golden moons and eclipses, right? As well as chariot sightings, okay, strange lights in the heavens. All right, all these things are being done by Yahweh Shai to let his elect know that he is about to send his begotten son Yahweh Shai back to deliver us. Okay, and at the times of these heathen nations, Esau, Edom, and the rest of these heathen, their times of rulership is just about over with. Okay, but Luke 21 verse 25, Yahushua is speaking, "And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations." Okay, do we not see the different nations and different countries of the earth already in distress? Okay, absolutely. As you have all kinds of war and division going on throughout the earth. Okay, nations not seeing eye to eye with another. Okay, even America's, European allies and NATO and EU allies are looking at America with a side eye. Okay, looking to do business with countries by the likes of Russia and China, and certain various countries that America is hostile against currently right now within a realm of geopolitics. Okay, so we're seeing the stress of nations throughout the earth with what? With perplexity. See that? With perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Okay, we're seeing different weather effects and weather patterns happening throughout the earth. Okay, earthquakes in diverse places, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, right? Droughts. Okay, all these things are signs letting us know that we're in the end times. Okay, before the return of Hamashiach Yahushua. Okay, to deliver and gather the elect of the nation of Israel from throughout the four corners of the earth. Okay, but as Yahushua went into in this verse, Luke 21 verse 25, okay, Yahushua foretold that perplexity will be happening throughout the earth in these latter days. Okay, and as we always bring out, this word perplexity in Luke 21 verse 25, Strong's G640, aporia, the state of one who is in perplexity. All right, when you go to the root word, Strong's G639, aporio, and it means to be without resources. See that? To be without resources. So a lack of access to resources will be heavy in the earth in these latter days. Okay, ultimately leading to the return of Yahushua. Okay, and what we see going on as of right now with the conflict between the United States and Israel versus Iran, okay, which has caused Iran to close off the Strait of Hormuz and close off, all right, any tanker vessels from, okay, moving oil and gas in and out of that region. Okay, that's going to bring forth perplexity. All right, higher oil prices, which is going to lead to higher gas prices. People paying more at the pump. All right, and that in itself is going to have a domino effect on things such as the supply chain. Okay, trucking is going to take a major hit due to truckers having to pay more at the pump. Okay, and mind you, all right, these various stores and supermarkets all throughout America, Babylon the Great. How do these stores get their merchandise and their the things that they put in their shelves? Okay, by these truckers, hauling merchandise and goods to and from these stores across the country. Okay, these truckers are going to be strained at the pump, having to pay significantly higher prices at the pump, okay, due to the wickedness of the government and all these wars, right? If these truckers are going to have to pay significantly higher prices for gas and to move goods in and out throughout America, Babylon the Great, then that's ultimately going to lead to what? Okay, less produce, less food making it into these stores and these supermarkets. Okay, and if there's less produce and less stores and less merchandise and less food in these supermarkets and these stores that people shop at, then that's going to ultimately lead to what? A famine. Okay, a scarcity of items and goods and essential needs, right? That's going to lead to a famine. It's going to lead to people being perplexed, okay, without resources, as it went into. All right, as I said again, this Strong's Strong's G639, aporio, to be without resources, to be in straits, to be left wanting, to be embarrassed, to be in doubt, not to know which way to turn. Okay, to be at loss with oneself, to be in doubt, not to know how to decide or what to do, to be perplexed. You see that? And what's going to cause these people to to be at loss with themselves and basically lose their minds in these latter days. Okay, a lack of resources. Going to the store and finding a lack of food and a lack of essential goods in these stores. Okay, having to pay significantly more at the pump, to fill their cars or fill their trucks, okay, their work vehicles and whatnot, to make it to and from work, right? All these things are all a part of the perplexity that Yahushua is warning of here in Luke 21 verse 25, okay, associated with the return of Yahushua, okay, and also as well, or rather, let's get into G&T, all right, 2nd Ezra 16. Second Ezra 16, and I'm gonna start at verse 17, and this is in the G&T. It says, "As the prophet Ezra, he says, I'm doomed. All right, woe is me. As you read in the KJV, it says, who will rescue me in those days? All right, because as the prophet Ezra was given visions and revelations of what will be going on in these outer days. Okay, as Ezra was seeing, visions of, how bad things would be in the earth in these latter days. Okay, he's like, damn, woe is me. All right, I'm doomed. Who's going to deliver me in those days? All right, and of course, why would Ezra have thoughts like that? Because Ezra knew that, all right, Yahweh Shema Shai, okay, would have him born into the earth in his latter days to literally go through, all right, all these, perplexity and these end time prophecies that we see going on in the earth in these latter days. Okay, the prophet Ezra is back, all right, in the earth in these latter days through reincarnation. Okay, literally living through the very visions that the Lord, okay, revealed to him during his time back in ancient times, as we're reading right here in the book of Second Ezra. Okay, Second Ezra 16 verse 17 in the GNT again it says, "I'm doomed, I'm doomed. Who will rescue me in those days?" Verse 18, "Troubles will come and many people will groan." Okay, distress of nations, as we just read of in Luke 21 and 25, right? It says, "Famine will come and many will die. Wars will come and the powers will tremble." Okay, and do we not see wars going on the earth currently right now? Okay, yes. Wars, rumors of wars, right? But, okay, this is only just a beginning. As a matter of fact, because let's read verse 18 in the KJV real quick. All right. Second Ezra 16 verse 18 in the KJV, it says, "The beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils come?" See that? So what we see going on so far in the earth, with the whole conflict between the United States and Iran, okay, and all of the damage that's coming forth of it, right? And the looming perplexity that's getting ready to come out of that war. Hey, this is only the beginning. Okay, this is only the beginning of Jacob's trouble, in the beginning of the end of Babylon the Great, and the beginning of the end of Edomite supremacy in the earth. You see that? The beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine, beginning of wars, beginning of evils. You see that? And so let's go back to the GNT. Second Ezra 16 and verse 19 in the GNT. Matter of fact, let's read verse 18 again. It says, "Troubles will come and many people will groan. Famine will come and many will die. Wars will come and the world powers will tremble. Disasters will come and everyone will be terrified." All right. What will people do when these disasters come? All right. And, we already know what we, the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, are going to do when these evils and disasters intensify on the earth. Okay, we're going to call upon Yahweh Shema Shai. You see that? We're going to call upon the name of Yahweh Shema Shai as these evils and these disasters, okay, and all these troubles and tribulations continue to intensify more and more on earth. All these wars, famine, okay, division everywhere, conflicts. Hey, as the world is waxing worse and worse and worse, hey, the hopeful elect, the remnant of Yahweh Shema Shai is waxing stronger in these latter days. The house of David is waxing stronger and stronger in these latter days. You see that? In verse 19 in the GNT, it says, "Famine, epidemics, troubles." All right. Let's look up epidemics. Okay, epidemics from Oxford Dictionary of English. It means a widespread occurrence of an infectious disease in a community at a particular time. Okay, and that's another thing that's also going to ramp up in these latter days as well. More diseases. Okay, another demic is on the way, right? Another some type of major virus or disease is getting ready to spread in the earth. Okay. which is going to cause another, pandemic like we saw back in 2020 with the whole C-19. Okay, and as a matter of fact, I believe it, even right now in certain parts of the earth, uh, down there in India, if I'm not mistaken, you had articles coming out. I want to say maybe about a month ago, where you had some type of new major disease that sprung up in India, to where they said, there's no VAX, right? No jab that can cure or treat the disease. Okay, that was down there in India. So you already know. In the midst of all this, conflict and distractions and psyops that Esau's in propaganda that Esau's putting throughout the earth, in the news, starting all these wars and conflicts throughout the earth. Okay, meanwhile, behind the scenes, while nobody's looking, okay, Esau Edom is cooking up, right, more diseases, right, more more demics, more viruses, right, more jabs, as well as ramping up its technocracy with AI and building up all these AI data centers, right? And it's all going to lead to another epidemic, okay? Which therefore that's going to ultimately lead to what? Another more lockdowns like we saw back in 2020. Okay, Esau's shutting everything down. Okay, nothing is able to go to or fro without going through some type of biometric system, right? Checkpoints everywhere. Okay, mass surveillance. All right, Esau is going to be implementing all these things, okay, as a form of peace and safety. All right, in the midst of all the chaos that he himself is going to be orchestrating in the earth to justify his peace and safety. You see that? But it says 2 Ezra 16 verse 19 in the GNT says famine, epidemics, troubles, and suffering are sent to punish and correct people. See that? So Yahweh Shema Shai is getting ready to send all these sad things that he just read and more, okay, as scourges as amendment, as you read verse 19 in the KJV. Okay? Scourges, okay, to amend people's minds, to correct people, okay, to ultimately instill the fear of the Lord in the earth. But as it says in verse 20, but in spite of all this, they will not turn away from their sins. They soon forget their punishment. You see that? So despite all these things that Yahweh Shema Shai is ramping up and intensifying in the earth in these latter days, okay, for the purpose of judgments, right? People are still going to continue in their wickedness. People are still going to continue in their rebellion, their pride, okay, their lack of fear or respect towards Yahweh Shema Shai. And people are still going to one day after the beast. They're still going to look to Esau Edom for answers and solutions and explanations to what the hell is going on in the earth, right? And that's ultimately going to cause millions of people to ultimately bow the knee and take the MOTB. You see that? And so and when it's all said and done, it's ultimately just going to lead to the Heavenly Father Yahweh, okay, having the sin His begotten Son Yahweh Shai back, just pretty much do away and subdue all this wickedness and evil that's going on the earth, okay, spearheaded by Esau Edom and the rest of these heathen nations, and ultimately set up the kingdom of heaven, the tabernacle of David, okay, to rule this earth in righteousness and order, equity, righteous judgment, righteous justice. You see that? But hey, as the scripture says in the book of Acts 14 and 22, says, confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith, and that we must through much tribulation enter into the kingdom of Yahweh Shema Shai. You see that? And what we see right here, okay, with what's going on with the whole war between Israel and Iran, all right, the United States and Israel versus Iran, okay, this is all just the beginning of sorrows, the beginning of tribulation, the beginning of troubles, right? the beginning of the end. Okay, the beginning of the end of Babylon the Great, the beginning of Jacob's trouble. Okay, and ultimately, things are going to continue to get, more and more worse. There's going to be more wars and rumors of war, more conflict between nations. All right, more famine, more pestilence, more epidemics. As we look that word up, right? More, earthquakes in diverse places, and more weather effects. Okay, more confusion. All right, and expect for things to continue to get worse and worse and worse according to prophecy. All right, that's going to ultimately lead to Yahweh Shai coming back. Okay, to deliver and gather the elect. All right, out of all this madness that's going on the earth. You see that? And so, and so with that, Lord willing, this video is edifying. And until next time, Shalom.